Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
Welcome, folks, to another fun-filled edition of Who Wants to Retire Worry-Free? Today's contestants are Aaron Orender from Standiford Field, Derek Hudson from Paducah-tropolis, and Maribeth Combs from East Virginia. And now, your host of our show, America's Money Missionary, Tony Walker.
Hey everybody, Tony Walker here, and welcome to Who Wants to Retire Worry-Free? All right, I got a good question for the guest today. Here it is. It's a fill in the blank. Aaron, are you ready? Here we go. Cash is...
Too expensive.
No. All right, Derek, I know you got this one, partner. Come on now. Cash is...
Not as good as Bitcoin.
It's always about Bitcoin, Derek. And finally, our newest contestant, Maribeth. Come on, let's hear it, Maribeth. Cash is...
It's overrated.
The correct answer? Cash is king.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the Worry-Free Retirement, with your host, nationally recognized retirement specialist and four-time author, Tony Walker.
Cash. Cold hard, tax-free cash. To me, as a saver, there is no better nor more predictable and precious commodity than cash. Take this $100 bill as we record this show on February 23rd, 2022, and on these $100 bills, which is really just a surface piece of paper issued by the government, this $100 bill represents a commodity that can be used for anything of value up to $100. Always has been, always will be. And while one might argue that this $100 bill doesn't buy as much as it used to, which is true, it is still considered by most savers as the best universal form of exchange for goods and services. Hey, even my granddad loved cash. Why? Because as he always said, it's the one asset that always fits and is always the right color. Yet, there's an important question savers must ask themselves. How much of this cold hard tax-free cash should one keep on hand in retirement? Especially given the fact that nobody is willing to pay in any interest on this money to keep it liquid. And while I agree it is frustrating to earn 0.5% over at the local bank, let's face it, nobody knows when the next emergency or out-of-the-blue expense might blindside us in the future. Your car breaks down, home needs repairs or remodeling, a child or grandchild needs financial assistance. The list of out-of-the-blue expenses and various financial needs are numerous and yes, sometimes unpredictable, which is all the more reason that in my humble opinion, cash is and has always been king. Well, welcome folks to the Worry-Free Retirement. And yes, I am that little man in the sweater vest, not only the annuity king himself, but now, at least for this particular show, self-proclaimed cash king for savers, fiduciary, and retirement planning specialist Tony Walker. And today on the Worry-Free Retirement, you'll discover why having adequate cash on hand, something we in the financial world refer to as liquidity, is the key to worrying less about future and the what-if things that will surely come our way. But before we turn on the financial printing presses, let me introduce three of my favorite cash cows working in the studio to keep the cash rolling in. America's favorite financial sidekick, Mr. Aaron Orender. Louisville, Kentucky's most laid-back graphics artist, Mr. Derek Hudson, and our associate producer, Miss Meek and Mild Maribeth Combs. Okay, there you sit, asking yourself this question. Are those liquid cash dollars peeking out of your wallet enough to meet the liquidity needs of today and tomorrow? And perish the thought, is all that money you've been stockpiling in your 401k plan, is it really accessible and as liquid as you might think? Well, here's what I've discovered in meeting with more than 15,000 savers over these past 37 years in looking at all of their finances and plans for retirement. The biggest financial mistake savers can make in retirement is this: not having enough cash on hand, or what we in the business refer to as enough liquidity. So when I return, I'm going to share with you why some of the richest and most profitable companies in the world keep boatloads of cash on hand and why savers like you should too. When Cash is Still King, coming right up, I'm Tony Walker. I'll be right back. Have you recently retired, been laid off, or offered a pension buyout? Has the company you work for moved, been acquired, or closed its doors forever? And finally, do you have a 401k with a previous employer you'd like to move to safer territory? Then take advantage of this opportunity to move your 401k or lump sum pension to Tony Walker Financial. Let's meet in person to discuss your retirement options. Log on now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com to schedule your free, no obligation appointment. Let us help you today. Our Tony in the Trenches comes from Linda, who lives in Florida. Yes, we do have clients in Florida. And she asked the following: Tony, I keep hearing about I-bonds and paying 7% on your money, and it sounds too good to be true. How do I-bonds work, and are they liquid? And if so, how much can I invest in them? By the way, folks, there's a really good website to go to, treasurydirect.gov, and that's where you go to purchase these I-bonds. So what are I-bonds? Well, first of all, they're guaranteed and issued by the government, and they pay an interest rate directly correlated with inflation. They credit in two different ways, either a fixed rate, which is currently 0%, or a variable rate tied to inflation, which through April of 2022 sits at 7.12%. Now, speaking of liquidity, if you withdraw funds before 5 years, you forfeit 3 months of interest. So say in cash you've got 12 months of interest payments and you receive only 9, then of course you're going to have a penalty. If inflation drops, your interest rate will drop along with it, and then comes a new adjustment. They're a good inflation hedge, good potential return, usually exempt from state taxes. The bad news is you are locking in your money for at least 1 year, and if inflation drops, they will drop. And finally, you can put into these up to a maximum of $15,000 per year per person. And again, you can't purchase these through Tony Walker Financial. We're just trying to give you some information. Again, you have to go to treasurydirect.gov. Okay, let's get back to our theme with the cash is still king thing and this idea of having liquidity on hand to meet the unexpected things that will surely come your way in retirement. But first, let's define what liquidity means. Webster's Dictionary defines it this way: consisting of or capable of ready conversion into cash liquid assets, capable of covering current liabilities with current assets. In other words, this idea of being liquid and having money readily available to meet current cash demands. And yes, contrary to what the investment world keeps telling you, that cash is not king, in the real world of working with savers, I would attest to the fact that cash is and always has been king. As the old saying goes, especially when it comes to the stock market crashing, in many cases, zero can be your hero. Or as my granddad used to say, being able to get your money at any time without hassle and without penalty, lickety-split, is a wonderful thing indeed. So what are some assets that are liquid, or what we also refer to in this business as cash equivalents, and what are assets that are illiquid and come with heavy cost to get your money out lickety-split at little or no cost? Let's take a look first of all at the liquid. Well, we have bank instruments such as checking, savings, CDs, money markets, and this is going to surprise you, HELOCs. Now, what is a HELOC? Well, that stands for Home Equity Line of Credit. And in many cases, when you retire, especially if you have most of your money tied up in a tax-infested 401k plan and you need a large sum of money, a HELOC is a good place to go get money in terms of liquid cash. Next, we have the insurance products and insurance companies, which include cash value of life insurance, short-term annuities, and of course, what's called the penalty-free withdrawal, PFW, the 10% penalty-free withdrawal of annuities. You see, there's a lot of misconceptions about annuities out there. Many people think, well, put my money in the annuity. If it's a 10-year term, which we're going to talk about terms on annuities next week, but it's a 10-year term, that means I can't even touch the money for 10 years without a penalty. Well, that's partly true and partly not, because most annuities, after the first year, will let you take out 10% every year out of the contract penalty-free. So it's a wonderful provision to provide some liquidity. Next, we have the government, and those would be short-term bonds. You could even throw the I-bonds in there, quite frankly. So short-term bonds, government bonds, short-term maturities are very good for liquid cash. And finally, speaking of cash, just cash, whether it's in your pocket or, buried in the backyard. Now, let's go to the other extreme and look at assets that are not so liquid, or what we might call illiquid. These would be assets that either come with penalties to get your money out or huge costs, okay? So let's look at the first one. This surprises people, the 401k plan. Again, I'm not against the 401k plan, folks. What I'm concerned about is all of these people. Literally, I had over 20 appointments yesterday in the Louisville office alone. That was in one day. And more people are coming to me, retired or retiring soon, and the majority of their assets, I mean the vast majority of their assets, is the 401k plan. And folks, the 401k plan is not a very good liquid investment. Number one, a lot of times based on your age, you can't even get the money out. And number two, those darn taxes that are there to eat your lunch. Oh, incidentally, coming up in our next segment, we're going to talk about liquidity issues and a case study I did, so good stuff coming up. All right, what else? Well, IRAs, their qualified plans too, have much of the same problems that 401k plans have in terms of liquidity. What about pensions? Yeah, pensions are not liquid at all. If you take an installment, once you start that installment, you can never change that election option. Also, if you have a lump sum pension available, sometimes they're a little more liquid and we can help you with that. Obviously, stocks, and you might say, well, wait a minute, Tony, I don't agree with that at all. I can sell my stock at any time. In fact, Derek, let's go on and put up several of these. We got bonds, mutual funds, and let's hold off on long-term annuities. So I want to focus on those three: stocks, bonds, mutual funds. Remember the definition of liquidity. That means you can get your money out at any time, lickety split. So in this example, you could sell your stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. The problem is, remember we said, without risk of loss. See, a stock, let's say you need $20,000 out of a particular stock and the stock is down. Well, you can liquidate it, but you might take a loss. Same holds true for bonds. Right now in our portfolios, we're having to deal with this. These darn bonds are going down in value because interest rates are creeping up. So the value could still be going down, as the same with mutual funds. Derek's already got this up. And the next one is long-term annuities. Now you got to remember, folks, I love annuities. And long-term annuities have their place as long as those long-term annuities are within a structured and written game plan that has other assets. Remember, folks, and I'm seeing this more and more, you are running out and you're dumping in all of your money into these long-term annuity contracts. You're taking all flexibility, all use, all liquidity right off the table. Please don't do that. So if anybody's pitching an annuity to you, especially if they're suggesting you put the vast majority of your money in annuity, don't do that. Don't get stuck in the wrong annuity. Get a second opinion from us, or better yet, go right now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, download the free annuity guide. It's called Annuities Made Easy. It'll tell you about all the surrender charges. Again, next week we're going to get into that as well. And then finally, let's say, I think I've got two more here. We've got real estate investment trusts. They're not very liquid at all. And then commodities, which again, you might say are liquid, but again, we've got a problem because depending on when you take out the gold or silver or go to liquidate it, that value could be way down. So the point is, liquidity deals with protection of principal, it deals with access to your money lickety split, and it deals with hopefully money you can get out without penalty. Okay, so we're getting ready to take a break. I'm going to get the whiteboard out here. What if the situation warrants that you are getting ready to retire and you've got all these needs that are coming up in retirement, and unfortunately, the main asset you've got is a 401k plan? How are we at Tony Walker Financial going to help you deal with the things that are coming your way? Stay tuned. Let us get the whiteboard out. We'll be right back. Warning, a licensed insurance agent with no prior knowledge of annuities can legally toss your 401k into an annuity. Don't get stuck in the wrong annuity. Get a second opinion from TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Welcome back to the Worry-Free Retirement. We hope you're enjoying our theme, When Cash is Still King. And you might be sitting there saying, Tony, wait a minute. I've been Googling around the internet and all the investor types are telling me that cash is not king and you shouldn't have a bunch of cash sitting around. Well, it is kind of interesting. We did a little research on this. Some of the most profitable and prosperous companies in this country, let's take a look at how much cash they have sitting on the sidelines. Google, estimated to have $136 billion in cash equivalents. That's a lot of money. Microsoft, $130 billion. Again, this is billion with a B. Amazon, $79 billion. Facebook, $64 billion. Apple, $64 billion. Oracle, $47. Berkshire Hathaway, that's Warren Buffett's company, $42. And finally, Ford Motor Company. So as you're looking at this and you're saying, okay, what's good enough to them? Could it possibly be good enough for me? And why would they have so much cash? It's what we've been talking about, folks, is because cash is king and you never know when you might need it, lickety split. All right, hope that makes sense. Okay, we got to cover this Live Well, Die Broke. Man, this is awesome. Our Live Well, Die Broke moment goes to these two people. I have no idea who they are. And I love this. Somebody sent this to me and it said, why you shouldn't wait until retirement to start traveling. I think that's at the Venetian. I've been to the Venetian in Las Vegas. It's pretty cool. And they have these guys, look at that guy's face, that kind of ferry you around in these little canals. The one thing that's kind of corny though is when they start singing like this guy. And I think I could sing better than that even in the shower. Anyway, so here we are back to the show. With our time remaining, I want to go through an actual case example, and I'm approaching this particular case from the perspective of liquidity. You see, folks, retirement planning is not just about throwing your money in a bunch of mutual funds or getting a retirement report with a bunch of calculations, because everything usually changes in retirement. Things come up. This has been the whole thing we've been talking about, folks. It's difficult to plan for everything. This is why you need liquidity. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to read the list of things that describes this particular couple. I meet people like this all the time. And then I'm going to go over to the whiteboard and actually assess the liquidity needs, all right? Let me read these off. And Aaron, if you would, why don't you just put these up on the screen there, partner? So basically, this couple is age 64. He's going to retire next year. She's a retired teacher. Keep that in mind. She draws a pension of $2,500 a month. If she were to die first, there is no survivor benefit, so nothing goes to him. He has about $500,000 in a 401k plan. They have $30,000 in the bank. Oh, this is interesting. Many people are starting to get an inheritance. This generation never used to get inheritances before. Now we have people dying who are leaving inheritance. In this case, they recently received $150,000 from their parents, which they use to pay off the home, okay? They have a 529 plan that they've started funding for their grandchild. Their youngest daughter is actually getting married. They're going to need about $20,000 for that this year. This is an interesting situation. This gentleman has a company car. Well, if he retires next year, guess what? He's going to have to replace the car. So he said, well, pencil in $30,000 for that for sure. So that's going to be an immediate cash need. They want to remodel the kitchen. You know, I run into this many times. People, when they get into retirement, there's things they want to do around the house because they might be spending more time there. They estimate that's another $30,000. They want to be able to travel on a regular basis. They told me that would be probably $10,000 a year, so that's an immediate cash need they're going to have every year. And finally, this was really interesting. They wanted my opinion on something they were thinking about buying, and I said, what's that? And they said, well, an annuity. And I said, well, what were you going to put in an annuity? And they said, well, we recently went to a dinner seminar, and we had an appointment with the nice fellow from the dinner seminar, and he suggested, dig this, he suggested we put our entire $500,000 in something called a bonus annuity so that we could get an upfront bonus. Now, folks, I'm not opposed to bonuses, but this is ludicrous. I'm seeing this more and more. People are putting too much money in these annuities, and what happens is you remove any and all liquidity. So you don't want to do that. Always get a second opinion before ever investing in an annuity, especially get one from somebody like us. We've been doing these things forever. All right, so let's kind of walk over here to the case study. And again, we're just focusing on income needs. Remember, in this example, all they had available liquid, that's after-tax money, was $30,000. And in the meantime, he has this huge whopping 401k plan that he's all excited about. I didn't want to burst his bubble yet. That hasn't been taxed yet. So what were some of the short-term needs? Well, you got the wedding coming up soon. That was around $20,000 estimate. You got the kitchen remodel. They were estimating that's another $30,000 they're going to need. He's going to need a new car next year. They estimated around $30,000. And then from this point forward, we'll just call it vacations, another $10,000. And then who knows what else is going to come up. I mean, this happens sometimes in retirement, especially those first few years. People are excited. They want to do things with their money. I get it. But the problem is, there's this problem. very little liquidity, too much money tied up in a tax-infested 401k plan. So the question is now, what are we going to do? Where are we going to get that money? These are immediate needs, okay? Come to the rescue in this case. I told him, I said, what about your house over here? You know, you recently paid that off, and that's all well and good. But if we go into this 401k, okay, and if we pay for a wedding, kitchen, car, vacation, what is that, $90,000? Or you're going to have to take, besides your regular income you need out of there, you're going to have to take $120,000, $130,000 before taxes just to net 90. And they said, well, we don't want to do that. Not only does that take away from our account, we've got all these taxes. We didn't realize that. So in this case, what we suggested, again, this is why you need to meet with somebody like us. Don't run out and do this, folks. It's just a suggestion. We suggested, which they weren't crazy about it at first because they just got through paying off the home, but in order to avoid all these taxes, we suggested they consider some of the money with what's called the HELOC. Remember, we mentioned that earlier in the show, a home equity line of credit to get money out tax-free, okay? And we would orchestrate all this and then use the 401k to help pay that back over time so it would lower the taxes that's going to have to be paid. So strategies like this are things we do at Tony Walker Financial all the time. But here's the key, folks. When you get into retirement, you've got to work with a retirement planning specialist that not only understands investments, annuities, cash flow, but also understands the liquidity needs that are surely going to be needed as you go through retirement. So if you don't feel like you've got anybody that truly understands retirement planning, a trusted fiduciary that you can meet with locally, somebody that's been doing this for over 37 years, let me invite you right now to go to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Click on that Let's Get Started button, or if you like, simply call the toll-free number on your screen and we'll arrange either a phone call or we can meet in person. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com. All right, what does the Bible have to say about this whole notion of liquidity and diversification and not putting all your eggs in one basket? Oh, some good stuff coming your way. Tell you what, let me get another cup of coffee. I'll be right back. Whether you're a long-time viewer of the WorryFree Retirement or just catching it for the first time, know this: you can watch past episodes and educational clips by visiting our YouTube channel. Just log on to youtube.com and search Tony Walker Financial. At the core of our proprietary split IRA concept is this motto: provide savers with maximum use, maximum flexibility, and maximum control over their money. The success of our split IRA concept takes seriously this notion that cash is still king and that savers must have on-hand money that they can get their hands on with little or no penalty, or as my granddad used to say, lickety-split. And while investors and speculators might scoff at the fact of earning only a mere 0.5% of interest at the local bank, savers know that having liquid cash on hand, something we refer to as cash equivalents, yes, even those cash equivalents paying next to nothing in interest, is still better than not having access to your money at all. Earlier in the show, we talked about the best cash equivalent assets savers might consider to remain liquid, and we learned a sound principle of investing and life in general, one based on the fact that you never know when you might need your money, one that fulfills the old saying of never put all of your eggs in one basket. A sound philosophy that's not new at all. In fact, the richest man who ever lived, King Solomon, suggested the same piece of advice in Ecclesiastes 11, 1-3, where he says, "Cast your bread upon the waters, for after many days you will find it again. Divide your portion among 7 or even 8, for you do not know what disaster may befall the land. If the clouds are full, they will pour out rain upon the earth, and whether a tree falls to the south or to the north, in the place where it falls, there it will lie." You see, in biblical days, and yes, even today, fishermen have discovered that the best way to catch a lot of fish is to cast your net in the water, not just in one place, and not just in the same place, but in many different places. And while it is our job to cast the nets and work to find the fish, in the end, it is God who provides them. He's the only one who knows where the fish are, and He is the one who controls the environment in which we work to find fish. Your money and where it is invested is no different. Rather than putting all of your eggs in one basket, in other words, rather than casting our net in just one place, Can anyone say 401k plan? It is sometimes best to cast our nets often and in many different locations or investments. Why? Because we never really know where the fish are and when we will catch a bunch of fish. And then, to conclude these verses of Scripture, Solomon casts his net in a different direction, where in verse 3 he refers to fallen trees laying where they fall. Now, why would he mention this all of a sudden? Because it reminds us of just how little control we have over the things of God, and once he does something, like fallen trees, in most cases, those trees will lie where they're going to lie. The city of Bowling Green saw a lot of God's handiwork as thousands of trees fell in a matter of minutes as a tornado ripped a path of destruction, with some of those trees still laying on the ground to this day because they're too big to move. And so too can your money fall and lay there at a time when you need it most. Need $50,000 lickety-split from your tax-infested 401k plan that just happens to be down 20% as a result of a market correction? Well, assuming you don't want to take the tax hit and the loss and do nothing, well, there it is. It lays there. Thinking of turning over your life savings to the latest too-good-to-be-true annuity pitch from an annuity peddler you just met, only to discover that there's huge penalties to get your money out just about the time you need it? Well, there it lays. So what's done is done. And therein lies the problem I see time and time again. Savers who are sold products with no plan. Savers casting the same net over in the same place and wondering why they aren't catching any fish. Savers blindly turning over their life savings to the first person they meet when all the while the person handling their money has no plans in writing on how to use and enjoy this money with the least amount of cost and the most liquidity. So here's my golden rule of using and enjoying your money on a liquid basis. For sure, you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, but on the other hand, I do highly recommend that you get all of those baskets under one roof, under the guidance and oversight of a local retirement planning firm such as Tony Walker Financial, a firm who has the knowledge and experience in the field of retirement planning, a firm that has personally overseen more than 5,000 written game plans and currently assists more than 3,000 savers to worry less about money. Today, with all of the uncertainty that's out there, taxes, fees, risk, it's all the more reason you need a retirement planning firm that understands retirement planning, and that's us at Tony Walker Financial. So how do you get started with us? Well, that's easy. My name is Tony Walker, and for more than 37 years, I've helped savers worry less about money and proving that cash, yes, is still king. So if you'd like to learn more about our organization or possibly even talk to me by phone or in person, all you got to do is head over to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. And when you get there, you're going to click on that Let's Get Started button. Now, that information will be confidentially sent to our Bowling Green offices, and you will be promptly contacted about talking to me by phone, or if it warrants, I will be happy to personally meet with you, or simply call the toll-free number on your screen. Well, we hope you've enjoyed today's program. We'll look forward to seeing you next week on the Worry-Free Retirement, but you remember this, if all else fails, you be worry-free. Make it a good one.